Hey everybody, how's it going? In this video, we're going to be extending the shaking login screen functionality because what we're going to add now is animation where we transition between routes. Okay, so far what we've had on the login screen is that if you fill in something wrong and you shake it, it just does it. Oh, login, sorry, it shakes like this, right? However, when we get a successful login, it waits a second and then slides away. Okay, what we want to do in this video is we want to have the same kind of screen like this, and we want to, when it first opens, we want to animate in. We want to be able to enter in what we want, and when we successfully log it in, we want to slide out and change route, and then slide in a success message, okay, to say you have successfully logged in. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and achieve in this video. Well, that's what we are going to achieve in this video. So let's get started on that. So what I need to do first is this login screen right here was currently part of app component. All right. Now the reason why I put it as app component in the previous video is because we were just focusing on one component only. But now we need to add this as a feature. So we basically need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two component features. One will be login, and the other one will be login success. Okay, the login success screen will be just a simple little screen that says you've successfully logged in, and that's it. Okay, but it will also animate the same way that the login screen does. It'll kind of slide in, and then if we were to leave it for some other mechanism, it would slide back out. Okay, so coming back over, I'm going to use the command here, so angular CLI. I'm going to go ng component, and we're going to create a login component feature, and this will take just a few seconds. And that's done. And then I'll quickly create a success one. Component login dash success. So it creates two components for us in their own feature folders, and it adds two components to the app module. Okay, so I'm going to quickly bash through a few things here. Basically, I'm going to set up some routes now so that we can actually just get this going. So when I type /login, well, at the moment it still goes to login, but if I put in anything, it's going to come to the one page. Because that's the only route we have is the one page at the moment. But when I click /login, I want to come into here. If I go /login dash success, I want it to show a success screen. Okay, so we'll do that first, and we'll get that going. Okay, even if they have nothing in it. So I'm going to close the app component for the moment. I'm going to come down to app module, and we're going to do this really quickly. We don't need HTTP module for this particular exercise, so I'm going to remove that and just replace it with router module, just to make things a little bit faster. So we come down, router module, and all this stuff was in earlier videos. So if you don't know what I'm doing here, you will have to go back a step and look at those videos. I think it was either tutorial 3 to 5, I think, something like that, where I did the routing with modules. So I'm not going to be explaining everything here. So path, I'm going to have one called login, and that's obviously I'm going to go to the component of login component, and we'll do this 2 more times. So comma, like so. And we'll have login dash success, and we'll link to the login success component, and then the last one will be a catch-all double star, which will just wire up to the login component. Okay, and that's it so far. So let's just make sure this works. So come back over, and we've got the login screen. That's the default behavior. If I come in and go /login, we get the login screen. And something is going wrong here. It's not actually picking up these changes. Why is it not picking up these changes? Well, I have a feeling that I may need to run Webpack again. because it should be addressing at this point the new routes I created. There's nothing else to it than that. It's literally router module.for root. I've included the router module. That's all I should need. I've specified all the paths and the components for each path, so that should have worked. So we'll see what happens once it loads up again. I really am not a fan of Angular CLI, but it's just easier to teach with. When we get to deployment, I'll give you some other options. It uses Webpack, which is usually pretty good. So now I'll come up and I'll go /login up here. And for some reason, it's still going back to the main screen. What about login-success? Still the main screen. Very, very interesting. Alright guys, I'm going to stop the video for a minute and find out what's going on here. I'll see you in a moment. Hey guys, I'm back. Simple thing that I forgot to add. You got to have a router outlet for this to work. So I'm just going to whack it on top of the app component here for the moment and save it. So I knew I forgot something basic. Login works, so now we can see that. If I go /login, it goes login works. Whoops. And then finally, if I go login/success, well, we get the login success work screen. Now this login screen still here because it's part of the main app component. So now what I'm going to do, now that we've got the routes all set up, I'm going to move this logic from the login, from the app component, and I'm going to put it in the login component screen so that it only shows up when we go to /login. So just quickly do that. It's pretty straightforward. Just going to literally cut all this form stuff out. We're going to bring it over to the login feature, and we literally just dump it like so. We're going to grab the app component CSS. We're going to literally copy that like so. We're going to come to the login component CSS and dump it. In fact, I should have cut, not copy, so delete that. Now we delete the app component CSS. Close that, close that. That's fine, that's fine. So that can be closed now. Leave this open for the moment. And the last thing we need to do is we need to come down to the app component TS, and we need to basically copy all this as well. So just literally cut all this out, save, come into the login component, and inside of this component just paste it. Whoops. And I'll just indent that in a little bit. We're going to remove the on init because we don't need it. So as a result, I'm going to remove the on init up here. Save that. Now we'll just quickly grab the animations because the animations are still on the app component. So we'll just literally grab this and we'll remove that. Whoops, we've got the last square brace here. Now we can go to remove this line. Whoops, too far. Save, come over to the login component, add the comma back in and paste. Now we just need to add the imports for these methods. So the quickest way to do that is to literally come here and just copy this line, copy, and overwrite this line, paste, save, whoops, ignore all that red for the moment. And what else we've got to do? We're just going to quickly go back over the app component. We're going to pretty much remove half of this stuff except for component, and we'll remove the forms because we never used it in the previous video. And that should be it for putting in the login page. Right, so now if I scroll on over, we come to the success page here. We can see the login screen's not here anymore. We've got login-success. If I just come to /login now, we get the login screen again. Does it work as it did before? It does. Okay. If I put in anything that's not login or login success, it'll come to the login screen anyway. Okay. So we've got the code moved, which is good. The one thing I want to do though is I want to actually start removing the delay in this animation here. So when I click the button and then there's a 1 second delay, I want to quickly remove that because that's really not ideal. So I'll come down to this here and remove that 1 second delay. And just quickly check that. Alright, so just quickly check this. Cool. So that's all working there. Now I want to go back to the success screen for a second. I want to pretty this up a little bit. So I want to add the same little white modal look thing in the center here, have a heading, and literally put in some text. Okay, so first thing I need to do, go to the login success screen, open up the markup, and we're going to replace some text here. Now what I'm going to type is another section. So section, like so, header, like so, we'll have H1, and this will have success. So nothing special there. And then we'll have a paragraph. And inside this paragraph it will say, you were able to successfully log in. Good job. Okay. And we'll save that. And that will probably show at least a little bit more blackness there, but we still need the CSS. So what I'm going to do, just to speed this up a bit, is we already know what it kind of looks like for the login screen. So I'm going to just copy everything that's here in the login CSS. And I'm going to paste it in the login success CSS, and we'll just make some changes. So we want the section, we want the heading. I'm going to add paragraph here because I want the paragraph to be centered. And then the rest of this stuff, the label, the input and all that, well, there's nothing in there. So let's just delete that and save. Now the other thing I just want to mention quickly about all these CSS files and components, really, and this is just my personal opinion, but once you start building a fully fledged application, if you've got something like a section and it's going to be used in this manner across multiple components, you should really be putting it in an external style sheet and then only making the modifications you need for the component inside the CSS file. Okay, so but because I'm being a bit lazy at the moment, I'm just going to leave it where it is and just quickly check it out. And as you can see, that's kind of what I want. I want it to sit in the middle like that. All right. So now we're going to start doing the transition stuff. So far, we've had nothing like that. We've just literally just shuffled code around. But now we're in a position, we've got two different features. We've got the route set up for those features, and we can get from one to the other. Well, we sort of can by using the routes. But obviously, we want to have a situation when we click this login button that it goes to the success screen. Let's do that first, and then we'll focus on the animation between each of the pages. Okay. So to get this started, basically what I want to do is on login, instead of it just transitioning out of the screen like so, I want it to just quickly go to the next route. I'm not concerned with animation at this point. I just want it to go to the login success screen. So let's do that. So I need to make just a couple of changes here in this login component. And it's on submit down here, where we've got this line completed. Okay. I'm actually going to remove this line now because this basically was used just to give an end state to the sliding aspect of the login form. But we're going to achieve that in a different way. We're going to achieve that by using the :leave when the component gets destroyed. And we're not going to need this anymore. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to remove this. Now what we want to do is when we do have a username and password that fits the requirements, we want to route ourselves to the complete URL. So how do we do this? Well, we need to first include the router, okay, the router service. And you may have saw this in the navigation or something like that. Can't remember exactly what video I did it in, but it's definitely in a video I've done before. But basically we're importing a router, and it's from Angular/router. Now I'm going to be talking a lot more about routing after this video, because that's going to be the next set of videos in this course before we get to testing. So now I have this router service, which will give us the ability to move on to the next route. But firstly, we need to inject it. And if you don't remember how to do injections of services, I do have a video on services. But basically all we do here is go private router and type like so, and just close it like so. Now we have access to this router object. I'm come down here and go this dot router dot, and what we want to do is we want to navigate by URL, and the URL we're going to pass, or the string we're going to pass it, is the login-success route. Okay, and that's all there is to it here. If I save this now and I come back over and I let this compile, I'm on the login screen, I fill in the right information, I click login, and for whatever reason, I think I may have spelled success wrong on the route, and I did, so just a spelling mistake here, so I need to save it again. And that's why it was coming back to the login screen, because the route was spelt wrong. So now if I do it, hopefully now I've spelt it correctly, I click this button and we get the success, right? And that's all well and good, the routing is all working, and we can see the success page comes up. But we want it to animate, right? That's what the point of all this video was about, is getting to the point where we're animating, we're transitioning out of the login screen, and then we're transitioning into the success screen. So this is the part that you have to listen to very carefully, because it's a little tricky to explain, but I'll do the best I can, okay? The first thing you need to understand with the enter and leave animation is it happens when your component is being created in the DOM for the first time. So, you know, that's the enter part of the animation. The leave is when your component is leaving the DOM, it's being destroyed, okay? So we've seen this in a previous video. The same thing applies here, okay? However, in the previous video, we attached the animation for this login component to this trigger here, this login screen animation, and this trigger was applied to a DOM element that was inside the component. Now, I'm going to show you very quickly how you might think that by changing this here to say, you know what, I'm going to change this to leave, so that when we destroy the component, it's going to do the animation, because the component's getting destroyed, right? So because the component's getting destroyed, it means the animation here should fire. I'm going to show you very quickly that it doesn't, and I'll explain why once I've shown you that it doesn't. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate this very, very quickly is I'm going to come down to the app component, and just for the moment I'm going to comment out the route, okay? And underneath it, I'm going to create a app login component. And with this app component login, I'm going to simulate like the login screen getting destroyed by adding a star ngif on it, okay? And it'll be show login, okay? So it's going to be a property on the component called show login, and that's going to be bound to this ngif. And then underneath there, I'm going to have a button. This button's going to have a click event, and all it's going to do is it's going to hide the login. Alright. So this is to simulate like a route working before we actually implement the route transition. So I'm going to go hide login, like so, and save, and I'll create this hide login function on the app component. So we'll open this up quickly, hide login, and then we'll quickly create that show login, and we'll set the true. And when we click hide login, well, it's pretty straightforward. We just go this dot show login equals false. Okay. Now, by rights, because we're now destroying the component, this app logging component, and because we set it to leave, right, i.e. when it leaves the DOM, we should fire off this animation first. By rights, you should see it now translate off the screen before it disappears. But does it do that? Okay. So I'll refresh the screen. We've got the component. We're simulating like a route change by removing this from the DOM. So it should start its animation off to the right, right? Just like earlier. But it doesn't. It just disappears. Now, why is this? All right. The answer is this. The animation that we applied to the login component. All right. So if I find the markup for the login HTML, we've applied this animation to an element that's inside of the component that has the ngIf on it. If we were to apply an ngIf to this section instead, we would have that animation applied. Okay, sounds a bit weird, but that's how it works. So as a result, the animation will never fire if we apply it at this level, right? So you think, okay, well, that's pretty easy. We just passage show login as an attribute binding, right? And then we apply the ngIf on here, right? The answer is no. Oh, the answer is yes, it will work, right? It will do the animation and disappear. However, it won't work in the sense of if you do a route change, because what actually happens with routing is that it applies at this level, this component level. Okay, so it's a route change is very similar to doing something like this, but we can't get to this point, right? Because we can't define an animation on this, right? Because the animation needs to be applied to everything inside of here, but we need to be inside that template in order to do that. So how do we do this? So what the Angular 2 or the Angular team did to solve this issue is they created another property on the component decorator, and it's called host. Alright, so underneath here I should have comma, and they've got one called host. And essentially what this is it allows you to attach events, animations, all different kinds of things to the component hosting element. So the hosting element is the app login in this case, right? We want to apply something to this element. We have to do it through this host property on the component decorator. Okay. Bit confusing to understand. It took me a while to understand it myself, but that's how it works. So what you do is you do like an attribute thing, like you do with the app component. With the DOM element on the login. So if I come back to the login, not login success, but login HTML. So you have to do basically this, right? And you have to do it at a high level, like so. And that's all you need to do in order to apply an animation, right? The problem is we don't want the whole component to shake. You know, we still want to have the ability for that section that's in the center of the component to shake, but we don't want the whole component to shake. You know, but we still want to keep this transition of when it's invalid, we're going to fire off these keyframes. So as a result, this transition when we're leaving has to be added to another trigger. And we can do that pretty easily. Right? If you think about it, all we need to do is create another trigger. So after this one, just go trigger. Right? And we'll call this one leave screen. Right? Whoops. Like so. And then inside of here, we will take this transition and we will dump it in here. Okay? And you think, cool, alright, so now if I go at leave screen, we're now suddenly going to get this leave transition working on the component. Now, you're going to find out very quickly here, this still doesn't work. Okay, so let's quickly try it. So we come over, I refresh the page, I click hide, and everything disappears, but it still doesn't work. Right? It doesn't work. It's like the login just sits there and then something disappears. So what's going on here? Well, keep in mind this login screen here it's got a fixed position. It's outside of its normal space in the DOM, right? So as a result, what's happened is the component has collapsed to a very small width and height. So the transition is being applied to the entire component, but because the login screen is not actually part of inside that component, it doesn't transition with it. Okay? So the way you can get around this is that you've got to create a couple of states for the actual full component, right? Not just the little login page in the middle, but for the full component. So how people usually do this is they'll create a couple of states, and they'll go, the first state is void. So we're coming in, for example. So the starting position for this would be a style that has something like position fixed. So now it's fixed along with the actual screen that's also fixed, right? And then we give it a top of 25%. So we're kind of putting it behind, or we're putting it directly behind the login screen, so that now everything fits together. It's hard to explain. You just have to basically try this out and understand it yourself. So we're putting it top 25%. We're going to put it off the screen to start off with, so left of negative 150%. So to start off with, this is on entry. So when we enter into the screen, we're going to start off from the left, right? And in fact, what I might do is I might leave this one for the moment. I actually come to the leave option first. So this one would be a state of star. And the reason why it's a state of star is because we really don't know what a state is, all right, when we're about to leave the screen. We do know it's going to go to a void state, but at this point we don't know what the current state is. So we just put start, and then we put style. So we're saying the starting point of any state that's related to the component, and this is for the component, we're going to start it at a position of fixed. So once again, position of fixed. We have a top of 25%, and we're going to say a width of 100%. Oops. I wish it would stop putting in that damn... Sometimes the IntelliSense gets in the way on this one. We're going to say 100% wide. Okay, so we're creating a component, right? The component itself is a fixed size modal type thing. It's 25% to the top. Okay, so it's basically come down 25% from the top, and it's 100% wide. Okay, and that's what we're going to put for the starting state. Now I'm just going to quickly bugger. I need to minimize the screen just a little bit. Whoop, too far. So I'm going to go comma here, and now we're going to move back down to the leave transition. Oh. No, that's right. That's fine. The other thing I wanted to show in this video as well is I wanted to quickly show group animations. but I might leave that for last. So what we'll do here is we'll create a simple set of stuff for transitions, a set of styles here. So if you don't remember, you can actually set a style set of transitions at the end here. So for leaving, I'm going to set the translate, or the transform I should say, transform. I'll translate, translate X of 150%. And what we'll also do is we'll set the opacity to 0. Okay, so what this is going to do is when we're leaving the screen, we're going to, for 1250, in fact, I might make this 1 second. We're going to ease out. So for 1 second on leaving the page, we're going to translate 150% to the right, and we're going to turn our opacity from fully opaque to invisible. Okay, and this will happen basically when we go from any state to basically void. Okay, that's what that leave is here. So any state to void, we're going to animate out. Let's just quickly check to see if this works. Hopefully it works. So if I click this, and you'll see that the login screen faded out. Alright. So basically what I've done here is I've applied this leave screen trigger to the full component. I've said for any state that we currently have on the screen, so for the component, any state it has, we're going to make it a fixed position. We're going to make it 25% from the top, and the width is going to be 100%. Okay, then basically for anything inside it, I'll just fit within that gap, right? And then we've said, but once we leave, so in other words, i.e. we're removing ourselves from the DOM, we're going to animate out first at 1 second, moving 150% to the right, and basically from an opaque to invisible. And that's why you can see it slowly fading out. As I click this button, it slowly fades out. Okay. Now at this point, this has only been applied on that button, but we want to apply it essentially when we're leaving the screen. Okay. So this will still happen when we click on login. All right. But I just wanted to quickly show with the button on the component here how you can do it. So I'll remove all this code now. Oh, Christ. It's a very confusing video, I understand. It's best to probably look at the code once I'm done as well, just to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually remove all this stuff and put the Lyrad outlet back in. So if I've done this right now, and I refresh, when I actually fill this in, because this is now going to get destroyed due to the route, we should still see the animation glide out. So I'll go login, and you saw it fade out. Now, the one thing you saw quickly though, was that as it was animating out, the logins at the success screen just jumped straight in. And we'll fix that in a moment. So the next thing I want to do is when I get to the login screen, I want to handle the enter aspect of it too. Like when we first load here, I want to slide in from the left and get to the center. Okay, so let's handle that. And that was essentially what I was doing earlier. Was handling the void state. So for the void state, we're saying we want to be 100% off the screen, right? And that will be it. So if I leave this as is right now, what's going to happen is you're not going to see the login screen because it's going to be off the screen. So let's refresh. And it's still on the screen. Oh, it's still on the screen because our CSS has taken over once it's been created and put it in the middle. Okay, so Hopefully that makes sense to you. So void is, before it actually gets fully integrated into the DOM, this is where I want it to sit. But once it's in the DOM, it should be where your CSS places it. So when I refresh, that's why it's still in the middle here. However, if I come in and create a transition now, that's very similar to that one there, right? And instead I want to translate, so this is on enter. So remember, this is from void to some state. I want to, on enter, I want to transform, I want to go 150% in, and I want to go opacity of 1. So I want it to be from 0 to 1, and then I'll just quickly add a comma here, and save. And now what should happen is, you will see it slide in from negative 150% to 0 in the center, and it will ease its way in and slowly go from a 0 opacity, and in fact I should be specifying up here an opacity of 0. So it starts off at 0 and gets to 1. So it starts off the screen with 0 opacity, and then slowly it will transition itself in and make its way slowly to 100% opacity. So let's quickly try that. And as you can see, it didn't quite work. Now, why didn't it work this time? What did I do that's different? Just trying to work out what I've done here. Left 150, 25 top. Width is not 100%. That is the problem. I forgot to specify a width of 100%. So remember, we're outside the DOM, so as a result, the thing is outside the DOM, so I made the width 0%. So I have to make it fully 100% for it to be seen. And if I come over now and I refresh and reload, you'll see now it slides in. Okay, and if I do this, it slides out, and we get the success. Okay. Now we want the success page to do exactly what we just did here, right? This leave screen, it's really not called leave screen. It should be called handle transition or something like that. I'll just call it that instead, right? So if I come in, I come back to login, it should still work. Cool. So all this trigger code here, it's essentially the same for the success screen, right? I want to keep it, and I want to use it in both places. So there's two ways to do it. There's the not so good way, and then there's the good way. So the easiest way to do it, and the not so good way, is to copy this, and come into the login success part, come to the component, come in down here, go animations, add the array and dump it, right? And then basically come in and grab all this animate stuff that we need, put it on the end here, like so. So all that's satisfied, and then the last thing we need to do is pretty much grab the same host part and underneath that do this, right? And this will work. This works just fine. The other thing I'll do is I'll quickly remove on init because we don't need this garbage, because the success screen doesn't need anything. It's just a template. So I'll remove the on init here and save. And if we come over, now you'll see the success screen slides in. But if we go from /login, you'll see the login page comes in. We go login, it slides out, and then the success bit slides in. Right, so we've got that nice little transition now. And we have to go back a step. So even if I go back and forwards, you'll see the translation or the transition working. So it is working. However, they're doing the same thing, right? So we really want to copy and paste this animation into two different places. Well, I know I don't. It's not very good for maintenance or anything like that, especially if it's going to be used throughout the entire part of your application, right? So how do we simplify this? How do we make this easier on ourselves? Well, the answer is pretty simple. We just create a class, right, at the root level, because we're going to have it for our entire app. Create a new class, and we'll call it router.animations.ts. Okay? Now, if you don't know this already, you can export functions in TypeScript, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to export a function, and we're going to call it router transition. Router transition. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to return the same trigger we were just looking at. So if I come in and close that, and we don't need that either. If I grab this component code now, and I grab this trigger, right, so we'll cut it out, and we come into router animations, we're going to return this, okay? And then quickly we can grab all of this. In fact, let's just quickly copy this line, and we'll put it as the import of this. Remove the component part because we're not going to be using component. Save that, come over here, remove all the animation stuff. You don't need it. And save that. What can we do here now? Well, guess what? We can take the function that we just created, this router transition, and then come over to the component, and we can just call it. Right here, right inside of this function. Now we need to import it, of course, just like anything else. So import router transition from not angular dot, where are we? Dot slash router dot animations, and save. And we're going to do the same thing for the logging component. So we'll copy this line, and we're going to at least grab some of this out, or cut some of this out. We're going to grab this. We're going to remove this bottom part here, at least. And we're going to put in the word router transition. Right? So now if we run this, we've separated the animation away from all the components. Does it actually still work though? Refresh. Yes, it does. If I come in and I click login, transitions, and now if we go backwards and forwards, we're still getting the same behavior. And that's a nicer way of handling animations. You put them in a separate function, and you put them as a animation type in the array here, and you just execute it by using a trigger. Now, just to be complete here, we really should have this in an animation file of its own as well, this login screen animation. However, this is not going to be specific to anything else but the login screen. So what we'll do is we'll come over to the login feature, and we'll create a login.animations file. Right, and this will essentially do the same thing as the router animations. So we'll be importing the same statement. So login animations, and we also need to grab keyframes here, remember. And then we'll be exporting a function, and we'll call it, what do we want to call it? Let's call it login screen animation, that'll do. Login screen animation. And once again, we will return all that stuff that's inside of the component. So all this, right? Just literally that. So dump, paste, semicolon, we're ready to go. Grab this, and just like that, we've got both animations in an array, easy to read, easy to understand what they are, and we can. It's just much easier to read this component now. Now we just need to quickly import it, and instead of it being up a directory here, it's going to be in the same directory, and instead of it being called that, it's being called login.animations. Now, does the shaking action still work? Let's try it out. It still does. And basically that's where I wanted to get to. Now I'll just demonstrate one more thing just to be complete for animations, and that's basically how we can run animations in parallel with different easings and different durations. And what I might apply it to is I'll apply it to the leaving of these screens. So maybe I'll make the opacity change faster than the transition, so you can see it fade before it leaves the screen or something like that, as opposed to fading at the same rate as the transition. Let's do that. Okay, so let's come back over. Now that we've got our own file here, we can just play with this little function here, which makes things a lot easier to work with. So on leave, we're going to change the animation. Okay, so firstly we're going to create an array, because we're going to have a couple of groups, or what we refer to as groups. Okay, and I haven't explained the group yet, but that's what we're going to be using here. So we're going to type the word group, and I'll include it up the top here. So what does a group do? Okay, a group basically says anything inside of this group, so any animate function that we call, so i.e. this is one of them. Alright, oh god, I'm not having a good time with the IDE today. Any animate that we create next to each other, so something like that, and we change this from transform opacity to, let's say, 0, and we'll remove it from this one up here. So now what's going to happen for this group, when we're leaving, we're creating a group that will animate the translation at 150% to the right at the exact same time as we're reducing the opacity. Now you might say, well, why are we doing this? We were already doing that. Here's the advantage. Just say, for example, I want the opacity to change over 0.5 seconds as opposed to over a second, but I still want the translation to happen over a second. Well, we can do that when we use a group, because now these things run in parallel. The opacity will get reduced to 0 faster than the translation will go off the screen. Okay, so let's take a very quick look at that. So we'll come back to the code, and we'll come back to the login screen. Alright, and watch what happens with login as I actually effectively log in here. Did you see the opacity went faster this time than it went last time? Maybe you didn't. I might make it even faster. Let's try 0.2 seconds. So this is 1/5 of the transition. So once again, we'll come back over. So now it should almost disappear instantly. See how quickly that disappeared? But the transition was still the same. Right? The same as if I click back here, you'll see that the stuff disappears so quickly. Hopefully you can see that distinction now. So that's what groups can do for us. They allow us to change the duration of certain properties that we want to apply to an animation in parallel. Okay. Now to be complete, I should really do the same for enter. So I'll come in here, I'll create another group. So at the end of this, right, so come over here, we'll push this down to the next line, I'll create another group, and we'll put the animation in there. And just to get the same consistent behavior, we'll put this to 0.2 seconds, remove the translate and just have the transform and have the opacity, and then for the top one, we'll remove the opacity and just have the transform. Okay, so it's the same as below, just in the opposite direction. So we're coming in at 150 and we're moving the opacity to 1 in 0.2 seconds. So basically, we may not even see an opacity change at all. So maybe I should make it maybe I should give it a 0.3 delay, and then over 0.2 seconds, you'll see it. So about half a second in, it should be at full opacity. Okay, so if I save this now, I'll come over to the code. So, oh, that was a bit quick. Maybe I need to delay the animation a little bit more here. So maybe after half a second, I need to set the opacity in. And for whatever reason, it doesn't appear to be setting the opacity after 0.5 seconds here. Let's try 2 seconds, just so we can see that it actually is changing the opacity. Ah, yes. So it is actually, in fact, working. So it slid in, and then 2 seconds later it pops up. So that's not quite the behavior we want. So we'll go back to 0.5. But the thing is, I'm not really seeing... Ah, that time it showed it. So you see it slowly fades in as it's sliding in. But it fades in very quickly. So now if we want to change this to be 0.5 and then delay it by maybe 0.3, what does this give us? That looks a bit better. Cool, so that's it. That's all I wanted to show in this video. It's been a long one, and if you guys are a little confused about what I've done here, please send me an email or just message me in the comments, and I'll try and explain this the best I can. But that's all I'm going to do for this video. So that's it for animations. Next video will be on routing. So I'll see you then. Bye for now.